Hey, does anybody actually know what pull value means? Like, at all? That's what we're going to talk about today, is pull value, which isn't like a real thing, but it's a thing that is real. Wait, that doesn't make any sense. Anyway, pull value isn't something you can, like, calculate, right? You can't be like, well, judging by this character's damage ceiling, their team options, and their reliance on specific light codes and teammates, I would say they have a pull value of 82.753 repeating, and obviously that's not how it works, right? There isn't some actual metric of what pull value is. It's more of just an abstract concept people use to say, hey, this character might be a better thing to get for your account than this character, right? And it's not really objective, but there are some ways we can look at it fairly objectively. So I kind of want to talk about what pull value is, what it's supposed to be, and kind of what I think a unit with good pull value even looks like, because I don't think that's super clear either. So let's talk about what could actually give a unit pull value, right? So a unit that has good pull value means that it's a good investment for your account. I say investment even though that sounds so stupid because it's a friggin' character in a video game that you gambled for. That's not a good investment. Go invest in like your 401k or something, alright? But anyway, as far as gambling in a video game goes, what is a good investment? Well, it's a character that has to fall into one of two categories, at least in my opinion. They either have to be a specialist or extremely versatile. And what I mean by that is they're either really, really, really good at one thing, or they're good at a lot of things. If a character is really, really, really good in a specific kind of team comp or specific teammates, like they're the best in-slot character for a type of team, then that character could have good pull value if you want to build that kind of team, and they could be something that you use throughout maybe the rest of your time playing this game, right? And if a character is really good in a lot of teams, maybe they're not the best unit in every one of those teams, but they're a very good option in a lot of teams, then you can see why they would have a lot of pull value, because not only does that mean you can use them in a bunch of different teams, but if you get a better character down the line that works for maybe one or two of the teams you would use that character in, you could still use that character in a couple other teams that they're good in. So those are really the two things that a character can do to have good pull value, at least by my estimation. This is also the part where I should probably tell you that, once again, I am not like a theory crafter. I don't have like a flow chart and a spreadsheet where I tell you that, you know, if you use Acheron with this team on a full moon during the month of September, she's going to do this much damage, unless you don't crit, in which case you're just going to cry. But anyway, what I am is someone that has played this game for a while, I guess, and has opinions. So, I mean, that's really all I can offer you. So anyway, since we've kind of given ourselves two categories, basically, of what a unit with good pull value means, let's kind of talk about a unit that would fit into either one of those categories. So first off, with a specialist character, I kind of think of a unit like Topaz, right? Because Topaz is a really good unit if you're building follow-up attack-centered teams, because you can get up to a 50% follow-up damage boost with her debuff that she applies when she marks an enemy with Numby. So that's really good, right? It's a very big buff, and she also does follow-up attacks herself, so other characters that benefit from you doing follow-up attacks will benefit from that. So obviously, in a follow-up attack team, she's a very good unit. She can contribute a lot to the team's damage, and also her debuff can make other members of the team do more damage. However, if you're not building follow-up attack units, you're not going to see nearly as much value out of her, right? If you're building a mono quantum team and a dot team, Topaz isn't going to really be something you're going to want to pull. Now, if you want to pull her and then start pulling follow-up characters, you totally can. And before I go any further, I just want to point out, you should always pull whoever you want to pull anyway. Pull value has nothing to do with, hey, I like this character, so I'm going to pull them. Pull value is more of just something if you want to be one of those boring people that's like, I only want to pull the units that make my damage go through the roof, and not the ones that I think are cool or cute, because I don't know, I like cute stuff, which, I don't know, I pulled Boot Hill as my last limited 5-star, so maybe that's not what I like, but I don't know, he's cool. He's cool. I like cool things and cute things, okay? Don't friggin' sue me. So yeah, Topaz is a really good unit for follow-up teams specifically, but she doesn't really offer a whole lot of value if you're not building a follow-up team. So she's a specialist in that regard. She's very specialized, she's very, very good in her role, but only if you're building that specific kind of team. Now, taking a look at a unit that I think has a lot of pull value because they are incredibly versatile is Aventurine, her fellow Stoneheart, and a really, really cool guy. Anyway, Aventurine is, in my opinion, the best sustained unit in the game. And that's pretty important, because when it comes to units that are sustains versus units that are just damage dealers, there's going to be a much larger pool of premium damage-dealing units than there are of premium sustain units. I mean, there are literally 2 limited 5-star preservation units, and a bunch of limited 5-star hunt, destruction, and erudition units. Now, of course, there are also 2 sustain classes, so there are limited 5-star abundance characters that are healers as opposed to damage reduction and shielder units, but so you can pull like Lochua or Huahua or units like that to fill the gap of having premium sustain units. But you really do want to have a couple premium sustain units, because not all of us are going to be doing these no sustain, 0 cycle clears of MOC. That's just not what the majority of the player base does. And there's other content that you don't really do 0 cycle stuff for anyway, even if you do that. So having premium sustains is super important, so you're going to need some, and Aventurine is kind of the best sustain in a lot of different teams. Now you can play him with characters like Topaz, because he also has a follow-up attack, and he is really good in follow-up attack teams because he has a follow-up attack himself, and also he gains stacks for his follow-up attack when allies use follow-up attacks. So he has good synergy with follow-up attack units. I just said follow-up attack way too many times, by the way. But he's also good in just about any other kind of team. He's a shielder that is going to protect you better than, I would say, any unit in the game. Sorry, Japar, he kind of just does your job better than you, and really just does kind of everything better than you. He even looks cooler than you. I'm sorry, man. You're washed. And he also has like a debuff on his ult, so that can make you deal more crit damage to enemies. His follow-up attack can deal a little bit of extra damage on the side, though it's not going to be really all that much. It's still worth it to just get a little bit of extra damage and maybe clear up some mobs. But the point is, Aventurine is a unit that is super versatile in a wide variety of teams. So you're always going to be able to use him on a team, even if you have other sustain units, and even if you get a bunch of other units, like different DPS or different Harmony units down the line. For instance, when I'm running my break team, I usually would have Gallagher as my sustain unit, because he's kind of the break effect sustain unit. However, when I was farming the Swarm boss, because I needed to get some of its materials, when I had Gallagher as my sustain, my boot hill just died. So I was like, okay, well, I'll just take Gallagher off the team, I'll put Aventurine in there, and yeah, I won't get the break effect buff from having Gallagher, but I won't die, because Aventurine will just make me not die. So while Topaz is really good because she is very valuable for a specific kind of team, Aventurine is really valuable because he's good in essentially any kind of team. I would say most accounts, you're going to think Aventurine is more valuable than Topaz. And heck, even at a follow-up team, you might really think that Aventurine is more of a good thing to have than Topaz, because they're both very good follow-up attack units, but once again, you're going to need to run some kind of sustain, and he is by far the best sustain for that kind of team. So if you're a unit that is good at a lot of things, you're probably going to be more valuable to more accounts, because unless you're pulling for and building a follow-up attack-centric team with Topaz, Aventurine ratio, maybe you're going to pull Jade, people like that, you're not going to really want Topaz as much. And even if you're not building any other follow-up attack units, Aventurine is going to be excellent for your account. So in that way, I think if you were going to actually quantify, pull value as a real thing, I would say that versatility is usually better than being a specialist, but both can be incredibly valuable. Because once again, if you're building a specific kind of team, you're going to want the best units for that team, obviously. If you're building a mono-quantum team, you're going to want to pull Silverwolf, because without Silverwolf, you do not have a mono-quantum team. And she can also be used in other kinds of teams, of course, because she has good debuffing capabilities as well, but, her weakness implant is kind of the signature thing that she offers as a unit. Now, obviously, the big difference between Topaz and Aventurine is that one of them is a support kind of unit, being a sustain, and the other one is a DPS unit. And in general, people would probably say that most supports have more pull value than most DPS units, just because there are more DPS units to choose from. I think I already mentioned that earlier. But, you could, have your account based around an Acheron team. It could be based around a Dan Heng 2 Imaginary Boogaloo team. You could be running Jinglu Blade. You could be running a follow-up attack team, Mono Quantum. You could be running all sorts of different things from Dot as well. Whereas, even if you're running a Dot team, a follow-up attack team, you're running a dual DPS carry, you're running a hyper carry, you're going to want supports that benefit those teams. Almost all of those teams that I mentioned, besides, I guess, Dot teams, could benefit from a unit like Sparkle, who just gives you action advance and a bunch of free damage. Characters that give a massive attack buff, like Robin, who also gives you free turns, are good in basically all of those teams that I mentioned. So, in general, you obviously have to pull DPS characters, because if you just have supports, like if you have Robin, Ruhan, Mei, and Sparkle, but you don't have any support for them to actually, buff, that's going to be a problem. But in general, we're going to get more DPS units than we are support units, because think about it this way, right? We did just get Robin just a little bit ago, who is the third premium 5-star Harmony unit, but then we got Boothill, who is a premium break DPS, he's a hunt unit. Then we're going to get another premium break DPS, Firefly, a destruction unit, and then we're going to get a new premium erudition unit that supports follow-up attack damage, which is Jade, another DPS unit. So, because there's 3 DPS classes and whatever Nihility is, and I feel like I kind of want to do a video just talking about Nihility in general, because the entire class is weird, because it feels like they have characters that kind of fill every other class's role, essentially, in the Nihility class, so I might actually do a whole video about that later. But for the most part, support units are just going to be a bit scarcer than DPS units, because I also think it's a marketing thing, because when you're marketing a really cool new unit, you want to see them just doing a bunch of damage and doing cool stuff, even though it might be more valuable if that unit is just making other units do more damage, so I don't know. Pick your poison with that one. So you are obviously going to have to pull DPS units, and whatever DPS units you pull, as long as you have the supports to build around them, they're going to be good for your account. And a lot of these units that are DPS units, even if we get a bunch more new DPS units, they're still going to be really good for your account. I mean, if you pulled Acheron, that was not a bad financial decision for your account, unless you, I mean, if you wailed on Acheron, that was probably a bad financial decision. Don't spend money on these games. It's not good for you. So in the end, what am I even trying to talk about here, you know? I guess we're just kind of really discussing if pull value really matters and kind of what it is, and we've kind of discussed what pull value is, but does it really matter, right? Because that's really a more important question, because it doesn't matter if we, you know, get a dictionary definition of pull value if the actual idea of pull value isn't super relevant. And the thing is, it can be relevant, but it doesn't really have to be relevant. I mean, like I said earlier, you should really just pull for whoever you want. My last premium 5-star character was Boothill, and I think Boothill is not a bad character to get. He does a lot of damage. Now, I would assume, and I would probably bet money on this, that Firefly is probably going to be a better quote-unquote investment in your account than Boothill is, just because they're both break DPS units. She has AoE damage, Boothill is strictly a single target unit. He's going to be better in some situations than Firefly, but I think Firefly will be a more flexible break carry long-term than Boothill. But I pulled Boothill because he's a cool robot cowboy, and I wanted to do cool robot cowboy things. And that's the thing, as long as you can clear MOC, as long as you can get the stars you want on Pure Fiction, it doesn't really matter who you pull. And I went through all the trouble of explaining what I think pull value is, just to kind of tell you that it doesn't really matter. Yes, if a unit is really good at a specific thing, that makes them useful. If a unit is really good at a lot of things, that makes them useful too. But like, in the end, you should just pull your favorite characters anyway and just build around them. And that might mean looking at the pull value of supports for your favorite character, like I said earlier with Silverwolf, right? If you want to build a Silverwolf Zealot team, a Silverwolf QQ team, you're probably going to want to pull Sparkle, because she's really, really good for mono quantum. She makes your quantum carry do a bunch of damage. Like, a whole bunch of damage. If you're building a break-focused team with someone like Firefly or Boothill because you really like that character, you might want to think, well, what unit is going to provide the most pull value for that carry? I mean, the obvious answer is Ruan Mei, because it's Ruan Mei, but, you know, it's worth looking into. So pull your favorites, and then maybe if you've decided, hey, I want to build my account around these couple of DPS, then the only reason you need to actually start looking at pull value is you're thinking what's actually valuable to the characters I enjoy playing. Because if we all just ran Acheron hypercarry teams with Sparkle and 2 Nihility units, it would just be boring, you know? The game has a whole bunch of DPS units, and you don't even have to use 5-star ones if you really don't want to. You can clear MOC with a QQ Mono Quantum team, if you feel like it. That's the thing. Supports do kind of carry the DPS in a lot of regards, so that's probably why you can clear with some 4-stars, but the point still stands. As long as you're actually trying to support the characters you enjoy using, you don't really have to worry about pull value that much, or who's meta or who's not. As a rule of thumb, of course, you do want to pull sustains that are 5-stars, probably at least 1 or 2, and you probably want at least 1 of the premium 5-star Harmony units, because Ruan Mei, Robin, and Sparkle are all 3 going to be really, really good for your account, but aside from that, don't worry about it. If you see Jinglu on banner, you're like, I really like Jinglu, pull Jinglu. If you see Danheng 2 Imaginary Boogaloo, pull him. If you see Topaz and Ratio and these other follow-up attack units, and you like them, pull them. If you really want to pull Firefly, pull her. If you really want to pull Jade, pull her. I mean, don't spend money on it, though. I think you really shouldn't do that. Speaking of Firefly and Jade, I think I'm going to do like a banner review thing after this, because, I don't know, I kind of want to talk about their banners and what I think about them, because Ruan Mei's rerunning next to Firefly, and I think that's kind of important, whatever. And I also might do that Nihility video at some point where I just talk about Nihility and stuff, but once again, this was kind of a scattered video. You know, I just wanted to kind of discuss the idea of pull value, because I was thinking about it a lot, and if it really matters and what it even means. So I hope I kind of made a coherent point or two, and like I said, probably going to make a video discussing Firefly's banner, since that's about to come out, as well as Jade's banner in Phase 2 of the patch. So if you want to listen to that, go ahead and like and subscribe. If you thought I said anything even remotely useful or intelligent, you can like and subscribe as well. If you didn't think I said anything about that, then comment down below that I'm a big stupid poopy head, and that I'm dumb and stupid. Don't actually do that. That'll probably hurt my feelings.